All right, so hello everyone, and welcome to the first info session for cohort number 2, the Laidlaw Research and Leadership Program here at Barnard. So I am part of the team that administers this program. I'm Lindsay Granger-Weaver. I use she, her pronouns, and I'm the Senior Associate Director of Internship Programs and also the Equity Lead at Beyond Barnard. And I'll let everyone else say things.
Hi, everyone. I'm Christine Valenza-Shin. I'm class of 84. I'm Interim Executive Director for Beyond Barnard, and very exciting to start the second cohort here. I do a lot of behind the scenes work, particularly around the budget and payments and things like that.
And hi, everyone. I'm AJ Aronstein. I use he, him pronouns. I'm Assistant Vice President for Lifelong Success and a Senior Advisor to the Provost at the college. I'm here really just to kind of do a little rah-rah at the start of this thing. I'm really glad that you all are here. It's really hard to gauge your enthusiasm when I can't see faces. I hope that you are as excited as we are to get this show on the road. The Laidlaw program is an amazing opportunity, not only for those who are selected as scholars over the course of their 2-year program, but we really structure the application process itself as something that's going to be beneficial for you as you start to embark on conducting research here on the college. And I know Lindsay will say more about that as she goes through the presentation. But honestly, the very one thing that I wanted to say to you all on behalf of Beyond Barnard and the Athena Center for Leadership, and Chris will say some words as well, is we're so excited that you're here to consider applying. The Laidlaw program provides such amazing opportunities for students at Barnard to get funding for research, for leadership and action projects, and for the opportunity to connect with one another within your individual cohort. And now that you all would be at cohort 2 with the cohorts in front of you as well. So I really want to encourage you to ask questions today, take time, get everything out on the table. This is just the first time you'll have the opportunity to ask questions. We'll convene again next month and throughout the application process. But really, we want you to stay engaged. And I just wanted to say I'm really thrilled that you all are at least here for the first conversation thinking about this opportunity because it really is a special program here at the college. So I'll say thank you and I'll hand it off to Chris.
Yeah, much agreement over here. It is very special and very excited to get to know all of you through your application and hopefully in person as across campus. I'm Chris Sneed, pronouns they, them. I'm the Director of Applied Learning here at the Athena Center for Leadership. Breen Bhatti is not here with us today, but we are bringing a round of also a lot of joy and a lot of excitement to kick off this application cycle. I won't talk about much now because there's so much for us to go over. So I'll throw it back to Lindsay.
All right, thanks. So this is the team. This is #Team Laidlaw. And let's get started into what exactly Laidlaw is. And so this is the agenda for today. We'll go over the program very broadly, and then we will funnel it down to Barnard's Laidlaw program, and then talk about ways that you can decide on research topics, start looking at faculty mentors, because those are 2 important pieces of the application. And then we'll have guests from cohort 1. We have a few who are going to pop in, talk about themselves, talk to you all, answer some questions, and then we'll go over some next steps, and then you can ask even more questions. So you can pop things in the chat if you'd like throughout, but we will have these stopping points so that you can gain clarification, ask directly, so stay tuned. All right, so what is the Laidlaw program? So it's funded by the Laidlaw Foundation, and they're really big into education as a way to solve global inequalities, reduce poverty, and also to develop this new generation of leaders. There are a few different programs outside of this one. Laidlaw Schools Trust funds schools in the UK and around the globe. And also Laidlaw has funded a bunch of buildings because that's what foundations do. That's the Women in Business Education Laidlaw Scholars. It works with women in business schools, provides them with funding opportunities to do similar types of work that what the Laidlaw Scholars do. And so this particular program, it supports undergraduates at about 16 universities. It's constantly growing. Last year at this point, it was 14, and now they're definitely at least 16. Our monthly meetings keep growing larger. But, North American schools like Georgetown, Cornell, Tufts, University of Toronto, and then other school in Columbia, I forget, our friendly neighbors across the street. And then schools in the UK, but also schools in France. And so it's really a growing program. All of them have these basic kind of like pillars to the program. It's 2 years involving a summer of research, some ethics and leadership training, and then also leadership and action projects that are tangentially related to the research, usually sometimes. But really the focus is to design leaders who understand the importance of research-based and evidence-based decision-making. And as you see in this quote, you really want to develop leaders, any field of activity, which is something you'll hear from us a lot. But in, going to like the Laidlaw conference, which some of the cohort 1 folks will talk about, and hearing and just really getting a sense of from the foundation, but also really from the other scholars, what they're making of it. It's truly a dynamic, program that can support a lot of different ideas. So these are the values. This is what they look for in Laidlaw Scholars. It's what they ask that we look for when choosing students to be part of this opportunity. And so this is how they then embody these values. So like ambitious and brave, curious, determined, extraordinary, and fast. And if you don't think that you are any one of these things, I will tell you to tell your imposter syndrome to shut up, because you are. And that is why Barnard is such a great place for this, because there's so many folks who fall into this category. And also people who just like are so creative and so curious about so many different things. This current cohort, it just runs the gamut of different ideas and different amazing things, and we're excited about that. But this is something that, if you're here, you are these things. If you're at Barnard, and if you're here and want to apply these things through Laidlaw, then, welcome. So next we'll talk now about the Barnard program specifically. So it's open to first years and sophomores. Kind of running theme is that you don't need to be of a specific major or even major idea. Not if there are sophomores in the group, you may not have declared a major. That's okay. First years, you have not, also fine. The commitment is 2 summers of work, and then some like academic year programming throughout. But there is a research symposium after summer 1. We had it in the tent on Sutter Field. Chris was amazing and kind of emceeing the whole thing, making sure it ran smoothly. The scholars equally amazing at discussing their research, having their posters. Posters, if you are interested in seeing them, will be in Alchel at some point in the near future. And so this is, part of that is really a celebration of the work of that first summer. Next, there is an annual Laidlaw conference in the North America, also a conference in the UK or Europe at somewhere. And so it's highly encouraged that you attend a conference during your time here in the program. And then also network participation. There is an online community of the global network. And so scholars have a chance to learn from each other, to connect, to, really use the foundation for making the connections necessary to bring projects to fruition and to really solve these like intractable global problems. And then also academic year meetings and retreats. And then the second summer, not listed, the Leadership and Action Program. Just a note that you can't do Laidlaw and SRI or other Barnard funded programs. Can't double dip. So even if there is time, perhaps, you can do other things, just we can't fund them. So keep that in mind as you weigh the host of opportunities that Barnard has. So some specific elements in the first summer, 6 weeks of faculty mentored research. You are not necessarily, in most cases not, the faculty's research assistant. They're there to guide you through your independent projects. And we'll go into later on like how to find mentors and someone that will support that. But interdisciplinary projects are welcome. topics that are either internationally focused or you can kind of like spin to have an international focus are also highly encouraged by the foundation, because they want these, again, like global connections, global impact. But it doesn't have to necessarily be a global project. So if you have ideas about things that are domestic, you can start to think about ways that they may transfer abroad, or, you know, a way that it can make an impact abroad. And we can definitely talk to you about that. And so the objectives of this first summer, you know, developing analytical skills, investigative problem solving skills, data management, all the things that come with research. As Athena Fellows is the question. The Athena Fellows count as another Barnard funded internship. I will toss that to Chris. Can answer.
Yeah, I'm gonna have answer. And so Athena Fellows takes place during the fall and spring semester. And I believe funding is over the summer. So is that technically considered overlap? Is the question that I'll throw back for you, Lindsay.
No. So we have funded folks who have been Athena Fellows. It's really, you can't participate in other summer funded programs, I will say. So very specifically, the summer portion of funding we can't double dip in that way. But however, if you're doing things throughout the academic year and then this in the summer, that is fine. That is typical and expected. So thank you for that question, because that was a key point of clarification. Yes. So the second summer 24, which feels like the Jetsons, which makes me feel even older because y'all may not even know what the Jetsons are. 6 weeks of a leadership and action project. And so these are really a chance for you to see how your research from summer one can live in the real world. So there are different options. So there are ways that you can either create your own project, whether it is like if you've done, you know, archival work or, you know, primary source research in the first summer and you want to do field work in the second summer, or go out, you know, talk to people, see how things can work, or develop a project based on your first summer, then you can propose that. We're in the works of finding partners for Barnard specific projects. So stay tuned. Anyone in the first cohort who's here, stay tuned, because we'll be sharing those soon. And then there are also Laidlaw Central opportunities. And so there are 4 this coming cycle. And what they do is they allow you to connect with people who are, you know, across different universities in different, you know, global contexts. So there's one in Fiji, one in Uganda, one in Mexico City, and one in Boston, because that is a foreign land, even if you're from the United States sometimes. So these are the options. A lot more information will come down the pike if you are in the program. Projects should be international or cross-cultural in nature. That's really important. To have an experience that allows you to live outside of your comfort zone is something that the foundation really is looking for in these projects, regardless of if they're your own project or something else. So I will toss to Chris for these next leadership and training areas.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Lindsay. And so I'm just going to say a little bit more to add on to the exciting part of this program. We kind of also frame it that, you know, at Athena, if you've ever come to anything that we've ever hosted, any info session, we always talk about leadership as a practice, which makes this pairing with Laidlaw a really important and integral opportunity, because we're combining the idea that scholarship every day is a leadership activity. And moreover, we believe that any kind of leadership happens in community to help develop and sustain our practice as leaders and scholars. Before we go to the next slide, the next thing I will say is, like, in a big picture moment, again, to emphasize all of what this program is about: leadership in action. And so between Athena, between Beyond Barnard, these 2 centers are here to help propel you all as not only serious scholars that are doing integral, really amazing research, but research that's reflective in community with each other as a cohort, and expanding, like, how we see the world around us. And so that's a really exciting part of both of our missions coming together to support all of the new cohorts that are coming on as Laidlaw Scholars and the ones that exist. And we can go to the next slide. And in concrete terms, like all of that lovely language, basically, there are some specifics. So we'll explore and deepen the practice of leadership throughout this program. Some key areas, you can think of them as series. Like in spring 2023, you can expect to think about and think through what it means to introduce community in research. Like, what does it mean to do scholarship? What does it mean to be in a cohort, right? Like, what tools can we use? How can we thrive together? What does community have to even do with it? Beyond that, as you move through, right, in this past summer, in summer 21, we featured cohort check-ins that were weekly as a part of a wider series of information and support. We'll repeat that for oncoming scholars in their first summer. And that means that for our new scholars in fall 23, understanding our experiences and charting our next steps is the anchor from you did a lot in your first summer and you want to move on from the experiences. How do you digest them, debrief them, and like use them as an integral leadership practice in the next year? We'll focus on preparing you all for what it means to do the leadership in action second summer through a series of workshops and trainings focusing on what it means to do leadership and ethics in your fieldwork, in your practice, and do it in diligent ways, followed by more cohort check-ins as you take on that summer too. We'll be here for you as a source, a tool, accountability, and more. And finally, that fall 2024, right? Almost the end of the arc, but what does it mean to start action planning for future leadership practice? And so that's a really quick roundup of some of the series and what you can expect to grow as a leader and a scholar through the Laidlaw program.
Thanks, Chris, and sorry for that typo, but we did do that last summer. We didn't do that 21, but it's fine. You know, we get it. Okay, so throughout the program, you do get funding and support. So stipend, minimum of $675 per week during both summers. The second summer, it looks a little different depending on the project and what you're doing, but that is a bridge to cross. And then it's 6 weeks. So the target for each is the first part of the summer. We hope to have, definitely in the first summer, everybody is on campus. Everybody, you do get housing as part of this program. You do not have to come out of pocket for that. Last summer, it was during the summer A block. We're targeting that again for the summer. And so everyone is on campus, coming together, working together, and kind of growing as a cohort and the community. And then for the leadership in action, we do hope to have everyone doing their projects around the same time so that there can still be that check-in and continual community. And then there's also additional support. So things to fund travel, other research related costs. So some folks needed, recorders or transcription software, things like that. And we were able to support that as well. And so here's some application preparation, just a very general timeline of, from today, and also on December 8th are the information sessions. The one on December 8th, as I'll touch on later, and dig more deeply into the actual application. So if you would like to come back, that'd be great. But the task right now is to start to identify, research topic and potential mentors, and I'll talk about, how to do that in the next coming slides. The application will open in January, close in early February. And then we'll have, at that point, we'll also, select applicants for interviews. Hoping to notify folks in March so that you have time to, solidify mentors if you are selected, or if you're not selected, to apply to other opportunities in, due time. In April, for those who are selected, we'll prepare for summer research and guidance will be provided. May, leadership training kickoff. Last year, during graduation week, in that interim housing period, is when I had the leadership retreat. It was great. quieter campus. And also got to see all the fun graduation stuff. And then in summer A, the research projects begin. And so this is it's very exciting to see this all mapped out again. And so now we'll go into briefly, but hopefully it'll be helpful, thinking about research topics and potential faculty mentors. And so when thinking of a topic, this is your chance to indulge your curiosity. Your topic can be something that you've been thinking about for years, or something that, was spurned from a reading from this past semester. Is there something that you wrote about a paper that you would like to expand? Is there an idea floating around in the zeitgeist or in the ether that you want to do more with? There really aren't rules. You just have to be interested enough in it enough for it to sustain you, both for this research and then also to bring it into life in your second summer. We encourage you to think about this and really have a deep interest, because in your application, we do ask for, what are you thinking about researching? And you can tell if it's something that, is just something that you thought of the night before the application is due, or something that has genuinely been on your mind for a little bit, at least, or if you can fake it well, nice job. But really dig deep, think about the things that you're interested in. Again, doesn't even have to be part of your major, just what are you thinking? And this is just a broad sampling of topics. This would have been a very, very wordy slide, and I included everyone's, but these are some examples of research topics from the cohort 1. And so if you look through these, you can see that they run the gamut, and they're really exciting to see. And there was also one that actually isn't on here, but they were interviewed about their research by a publication, and it was picked up. And so it was about the Indian Child Welfare Act, that case that's in front of the Supreme Court now. And so it's one really great example of research that has gone from the 6-week period to making an impact already. And so in finding a mentor, the one thing to remember is that the person does not need to be an expert in your exact specific research topic area. It's someone who their agenda doesn't need to match. They're there to guide you. And so if they have, broad disciplinary knowledge, then they can help you with locating sources or creating a methodology that makes sense for your work, provide feedback on things. And the way to figure this out is that once you have a general topic, start to see who is doing work that is similar, or who's doing work that could, realistically help them serve you in your independent research. And the way that you do that, you look at the bio pages, but also you talk to them. So go to office hours, shoot them an email, ask for an introduction from a professor in the department, or ask one of us to see if we can kind of facilitate that connection, or if you need practice on that. We do that often. But it doesn't have to be someone who's as narrowly focused as you are. You want somebody who can help bring you along and be there to assist, but really it's up to you to do the work. And then, in the next info session, we'll talk a lot more about mentors and kind of how that process can look and some things to say. But now, into one of my favorite parts of an info session is when you talk to students who are actually in the program and actually can talk to you about the thing that I've been lecturing on for the last 28 minutes. So I'd like to welcome to come off of mute and introduce yourselves. Whoever wants to start can start.
Sure, I will. Hi, I'm Tapiwa. I'm a junior and I'm also an English major here at Barnard. Would you like me to talk about my research?
Sure. Introduce yourselves and your research topics.
Sure. Okay. This summer I was researching colonial archives, particularly looking at digital archives and trying to understand how settler colonialism works to erase certain lives, certain bodies from the archive. And my research has kind of informed what looks like the next couple of years of my academic career, which is really exciting because I did not think that would happen. But yeah, next summer I'm hoping to work with a small collective that's working to make Black archives, Black photo archives more accessible, especially looking at the relationships between Europe and colonial archives. So fingers crossed that works out. I'm still working on it, but that's been my research.
Great.
So I guess I'll go next. Hi, everyone. I'm Isa. I'm actually part of the class of 2025, so that makes me a sophomore. No, I don't want to skip a year, thank you. I am a double Spanish and archaeology major, and that greatly informed how I chose to format my research. And my research is about examining colonial ecclesiastical educational policy in Mexico, specifically during the 17th century. So this is a very broad topic, so I chose to examine one particular work by a pretty famous New Spanish nun named Sor Juana Inés de la Cruz, and she wrote an allegorical play that I was very interested in looking at, specifically through the lens of how scholarship and academia and the transmission of ideas and education should be put forth in the Spanish colonial world. And this summer, technically the next summer, I don't really have a firm plan just yet, just because I want to keep my options open, but I'm really trying to develop a new project that branches off of my current project with regards to the realm of colonialism, education, and the Hispanic world. Perhaps I'll do something with the Philippines, which is what I am currently researching concerning that field.
Great.
Hi, I'm Imrita. I'm a sophomore at Barnard studying economics, and my research this past summer focused on menstrual cup uptake in rural developing countries and marketing strategies to promote menstrual cups. In the next summer, I'm either hoping to work with a firm that's based out of New York City, or if that doesn't work out, potentially exploring fieldwork opportunities abroad.
Great. As y'all can see, these were very different projects, very different books, and yet all found a home here. So another question. So think back to before you all applied. Why did you apply to this program? Like, what were the things that you were hoping to get in this first year?
I can answer that first. So one of the main reasons I applied was I was considering a career in academia, and I think that the Laidlaw program is amazing if you are looking into potentially getting a PhD or going to graduate school in sort of any field, because it's really rare to get such an intense independent research opportunity that's an early part of your college career. And not only does it look great on your resume, but also gives you insights into what it's like to lead your own research project and to work very closely with faculty members almost on like a peer level. Another reason why I applied was because I do want to go abroad next summer, and I think it is really hard to find opportunities for paid internships abroad, especially if you're only a US citizen. So I think that the Laidlaw program is great at helping encourage international programs for your second summer.
And I can definitely second that. Due to my experiences with Laidlaw, I'm more determined than ever to get a PhD, specifically within the department that I worked with this past summer. It's helped me really realize that there's so much more to research than sitting at a desk and just typing away. I really wanted to apply to the program because I wanted to get more involved with the academic community, connecting with professors and also individuals who are very driven about their own individual projects. So if you're into learning more about diverse fields, this is definitely the program for you. And also, you're not going to find many programs that will fund you and support you for 2 summers consistently and give you the guidance that you deserve. So I definitely recommend Laidlaw if you want to make amazing friends and connect with mentors and just explore what's out there.
Yeah, I agree with Amrita and Isabella. I think when I applied to Laidlaw, I was trying to understand my own place in academia and what I was interested in. And I sort of knew I was double majoring in English and anthropology at the time, actually. And I really couldn't make up my mind. And this only sort of solidified at the end of my first summer. But I kind of wanted to see what kind of methodologies I like using to research. And the thing about Laidlaw is because it's like such self-guided research, you get to decide, oh, do I want to work in photos? Do I want to work in writing? And now I sort of know that, oh, this is the kind of material I like working with. This is the kind of research that I like doing. Like anthropological stuff is like not what I want to do anymore. And I think it was just really helpful to have a space where I could experiment with a lot of the things that I would have to know a little bit more clearly when applying to grad school. I did know that I wanted to go to grad school, but again, I didn't know whether that was in anthropology or in English. And it's not that I had to make my mind up, but I was just curious to see what would happen if I was given space to conduct my own research. And I knew that I would have housing and I would have food and I wouldn't have any other classes. So it just felt like, yeah, like space and time to do what you want and figure it out, which was really helpful for me.
Yeah, it's great to hear from all of you on these. So one question before we then open it up to the audience questions. What do you wish you knew when you applied? And I realize it's not a prepared question, so sorry for the curveball.
May I go first? Because I do have quite a strong statement. Research does not happen overnight. I want everyone to realize that. Although you may have several ideas, it can always change, even overnight. I applied to this program with a completely different idea, but after several meetings, I kept on changing and refining my project. So you don't have to apply to Laidlaw with a set idea, maybe a set group of themes, but not something that's entirely figured out. Like that's part of the process here, to work with people and to develop your own style of research. And to go along with that, I want to challenge everyone to be comfortable in their own uncertainty. I walked into this program thinking that I would churn out a couple of publications and it would be finished. But no, it's a work in progress. There are very challenging days where it will be uncomfortable. You may feel unproductive or maybe a little depressed, if I can even admit that. But it's definitely a very, very rewarding process when you get to have all of these dialogues with individuals, which is something I wasn't expecting because I thought that the experience would be more individualistic, but it's not. So that's my spiel.
Yeah, just to second that, I think that I wish I knew I could take it easy. I think I really appreciate how like ambitious I was. And I think that was a really important way for me to know what I wanted to research, but like to step into like not knowing and sometimes not being able to find the things that you thought you would find at the beginning of your research. And also that it can very, very likely change, and that's okay. I think what I've appreciated about this program is just how flexible it's been to allow me to like figure it out along the way and not always be 100% about what I'm doing. So I think if I'd known that a bit earlier, I would have been much less hard on myself during the summer to be like, oh my goodness, I have to get this out and I have to have it be like PhD worthy. It's just like, do something. And also it's not going to be the last thing that you ever do, nor does this have to be the end of the research. Like, again, this research in so many ways is coming up in things that I'm still studying now. I feel like it's going to be stuff that I'm studying in grad school. And so knowing that I did not have to finish, or I do not have to finish it at the end of 2 years, but it can kind of open the avenue of things that take lifetimes to study. So that kind of like focusing in on something small at the beginning, but knowing that it's definitely going to like expand, and you don't have to like press yourself to like have figured out the cure to like global inequality or whatever it is in like 2 years or 6 weeks. Like that's not the expectation. So yeah.
On sort of a different note, I feel like I wish that I had started out the summer by using the peer resources more and just the cohort more. I think it's a really unique opportunity to be with 24 other people who are also conducting independent research. And you can learn a lot from talking to each other about where you're at in your research process, even if your projects have nothing to do with one another, whether that's like learning how to set up a Notion setup or Zotero, which is a really useful research tool, to like other things, such as the fact that you both have been working on the same literature review for your own projects, and you've been reading a ton of articles and you're sort of brain dead because you can't really process any more information. Your peers are great emotional and academic support. And I think the Laidlaw cohort sort of facilitates a really great peer group, so use it.
Oh, I feel like a proud parent. Thank you all for that. I'm going to open us now up to anyone here with questions for our current scholars. You can either directly message me, directly message one of them, put them in the chat, come off of mute, whatever way you want to handle this.
I have one question. So how did you all go about finding your faculty mentors? Were they professors that you had had in the past? Were they people whose interests lined up with yours? Or were you working on sort of the same research projects what they were doing, or just similar projects?
I can go first. Finding a mentor was a very fun part of refining my own research. I ended up actually going with 3 mentors, which I'll explain in a minute, but one of my mentors served as more of a content mentor. So he studies the same overall theme that I am currently studying, which is colonialism and intellectual history. And I had another mentor who would guide me through the research process itself. So she would look over my papers, my research design. And then I had a third mentor who would do a combination of the two. So I will say that my project was quite interdisciplinary, and there are a lot of themes that I drew from. And all of the professors I worked with are within the same department, and I was quite familiar with them already. So I had the chance to speak with them before I applied to the program and got to know them more afterwards. So that's pretty much how it worked out for me, but I'm quite sure that my peers had different experiences.
For me, in terms of finding a faculty mentor, I thought I knew what I wanted my research project to look like, which it didn't end up, that's not what it ended up being. But basically the way that I approached it was I like went on the econ department sort of website, and it's really easy and accessible at Barnard to sort of just like pop into their office hours or set up a Calendly meeting. And I did that, and I basically just like got to meet with, I think, 2 professors and just talk about what I was interested in terms of economics and what I wanted my research to look like. And from there, the departments are really tight knit. So they gave me resources, and they actually were like, oh, you would work really great with Anya Tolonen, who ended up being my faculty mentor. And she was already working on an existing project that I was able to sort of carve out a sub project with. So I know that's a little bit more rare for the Laidlaw cohort. A lot of people had completely different independent projects than what their faculty mentor was probably working on. But for me, just ended up working out that my mentor and I had sort of aligned interests.
Yeah, I think I also noticed with my own like faculty research process that like the first professor I approached was like, oh wait, actually this sounds exciting and I would love to be there for you, but this professor is doing this kind of work and will really help you. I think where I started was one, telling the professors that just knew me, even if they weren't in my field of research, because usually professors do know what other professors are working on. I also looked into like my major and like looked at the bios of the professors and I was like, what are they studying? Because I was specifically studying a country that doesn't exist anymore. I was obviously not going to find anybody specializing in that country, but I could find like the faculty mentor I found ended up specializing in like African media and photography. And I was like, oh, wait, I can use that to understand this, my own context. And then my other faculty mentor as well, who was my technical faculty mentor, was like my English professor who works with Shakespeare, but she like does so much about Blackness in the archive as well. And so working with those two people was really helpful for me. So again, I'd say like, just keep it open in terms of like reaching out to professors, emailing. Sometimes you'll get no responses. I think I emailed a professor over at Columbia and I didn't get a response, and I'll be taking the class next semester. So we'll see how that goes. But like, there will be like cold responses, but also like, sometimes one professor can open a door for another one. And yeah, I also like attached my kind of one pager for my Laidlaw research, to, not the one pager, like my kind of, I sent them like a copy of my application so that they knew what I was studying, just so that they could be like, oh, this is useful or not. So yeah.
That all, I'm just popping on to add that like all of these different stories are actually really exciting because it shows the kind of diverse ways that you can approach mentorship just broadly as you apply to this and beyond. Is super important to see that like multiple different people are resources in different ways. And so like your lead mentor for this project could be one person, and then you are so free to get support from so many different people, aside from like hashtag Team Laidlaw. Like, of course, we're here in a specific capacity, but there are so many other people, other professors around that can advance you here and beyond. And so it's like you see the cold calls or right, like I see in the chat, don't be afraid to email. Like those are so important, and it's such a good like practice to develop now in your journeys for every applicant, for everyone. So I'm just really excited to hear like those stories because it's emblematic of like that's the way.
Yep, they don't need to know you. That's why they're here. They're here to help, and they love talking to students. Are there more questions for our panelists? Come off of mute or just, chat or anything. So the former teacher in me is telling me to move on. But if there are questions, feel free to put them in the chat or email us or ask or wait until the end, until the Q&A. Let's keep going. We're almost finished. But so just some next steps. Q&A. Thank you, panelists. That was amazing. I hope you can stick around a little bit in case there are questions at the end. Appreciate it. But thank you for sharing your experiences. And you were all, especially with the faculty mentor piece, I mean, they didn't really know what Laidlaw was, and you all were approaching them about it. And so it's great for you to be able to cut through that extra layer of noise that hopefully our next cohorts will not need to. So good job. Okay, so next steps, think about if you actually want to pursue this opportunity. Does this still seem like something that you're interested in? Is it something that you want to know more about? Maybe come to the December 8th workshop to hear more. If it's something that you think you want to do, start thinking about a research topic or even a smaller question. You'll talk about it in your application. As was said, most people's projects changed from what they applied with to what they ended up doing for the actual 6-week experience. So don't feel like you're married to it, but it should be something that you're interested in. So let us know how you're thinking. Let us know, where your head is in certain areas. Also begin to identify potential mentors. So as everyone said, people really do want to help. They're really open and accessible. So fire off those emails that, given the time of year, could be a little challenging. So I would say also look up office hours or go to the departments or talk to professors after class to see when they're available. Email laidlaw@barnard.edu with any of the programmatic questions that you may have. Yes, this will be recorded and shared, and so we'll let you know when that happens. And then come to the summer 8th info session, because we'll actually go into the application a little bit more, talk about what we're looking for, what the questions are. We don't want any of this to be a surprise, because we really want everyone who applies to be prepared. So with that, thank you. And if there are more questions, feel free to ask them now. I'll stop the share so we can look at faces and you all can raise your hands. Does the mentor need to be from Barnard, or can it be a researcher at Columbia Medical or another university? So it needs to be someone from Barnard or Columbia. Columbia, affiliate schools, graduate schools and medical center. TC, we had a few from some of the grad schools. That's totally fine. They just have to be at Barnard or Columbia to be your faculty mentor for this program. That is a really good question. Anything else? Okay. If a student, okay, so I have a few. So if a student does SRI as a first year, can they apply to Laidlaw in their second year? Yes. So you can apply as a first year or as a sophomore. You can't apply beyond your sophomore year. So if you're a first year and you would like to do SRI this summer, that's fine. We've seen that where folks started a project in SRI and then wanted to have maybe a more holistic experience or interdisciplinary approach to that same work or similar work, and then came into Laidlaw for that 2-year cycle. So that absolutely is a thing that you can do. So yeah, and that'd be a great way to kind of dabble in the resources and see what could be available and what the best way you want to pursue the work that you're interested in. Another question, I'm reading them out loud so that folks who are watching this later will know what I'm answering. Are we not allowed to participate in another Barnard funded research program in the same summer or at all? For example, if I participate in Laidlaw after freshman and sophomore years, can I do another Barnard funded program summer after my junior year? Yes, you just can't be in these programs. We can't double fund you we can't fund you at the same time for things. But if you do Laidlaw, first year and sophomore year, and then do another, say SRI or the Lyman Fellowship, Growing the Arts, BBIP, any of the others, you can absolutely take advantage of those opportunities after you have completed the Laidlaw commitment. You can't do Laidlaw for the 6 weeks and then have a Beyond Barnard internship grant for the next 6 for the summer. That's really the part that we're trying to get away from. And really it's just because we have finite resources and want to give as many people the opportunities to get funding for as many things as possible. And so that's really why we have to set these parameters, because we want to make sure that, folks aren't double dipping, and then that then takes away from somebody else's chance to get a single scoop to go with, to continue with the ice cream reference. Okay, yes, thank you for sharing your email in the chat. So we're almost at time. There isn't anything else. Thank you all again. Thank you to our panelists. Thanks to Chris for sticking it out.
And thank you for hosting us, Lindsay. I think this was super informative. I'm so glad to see very briefly the other scholars. Y'all are great. Excited to see everyone's applications.
Yes, so thank you all. I'll go off recording in case there are other questions, but come December 8th and we will talk more. So have a good one.